Hannah's going to introduce us to public narrative technique, and then we're going to get our hands on it ourselves. So over to you, Hannah, and remember you can write things in the chat or the Google Doc if you want to note down any questions or comments for later. Thanks, Hannah.
Oh, can you hear me all right? I'm just gonna get the screen share working. And yeah, can you see the public narrative model?
Yeah,
Great.
we've got it.
Cool. So yeah, as much as I'd really love to spend more time in discussion today. I'm sorry, I've definitely chewed up some time with presenting there, but I thought what I'd do is I'd get us into, on Kate's advice, get us into some practical work to try and put some of those recommendations, if they feel like they're resonating for you, into practice, and using a particular model that I find really accessible and works differently for different folks. I love to see if this is a useful model for you. But before I do, I'm just going to ask, has anyone come across the public narrative model before in your work? If you have, give me a nod or a thumbs up, or pop a yes in the chat box, just to know if there's anybody in the group with any experience of using it before. Okay, cool. I'm not seeing any. Okay, great. That's good to know. Awesome. All right. So yeah, having spent a lot of time like thinking about the how of, what works and what doesn't work with bringing justice into a frame. We're going to shift gears into thinking about how you go about framing consumption, and bringing justice into the framing of consumption as well, if that's not something you're already doing actively, with an invitation to try out this model that comes from a practitioner called Marshall Ganz, again based in the US, but he's political theorist, organizer, who's been working for a long time, very much in grassroots organizing and building like broad-based support for progressive issues. And yeah, he developed this kind of model in collaboration with a lot of folks, as part of the campaign for Obama's presidential candidacy, and so this model was like really, really actively used in the lead up to Obama's election win, many years ago now, 2008. It's such a long time, but now since then has been rolled out across loads and loads of different campaigning issues, and working kind of door to door when campaigners are out door knocking during election season. It's also used in kind of partnership work, one-to-one interactions within organizations, helping to build kind of shared ground and understanding between folks. It can be used in public speaking. It can be used when trying to engage board members. I think this tool is like really adaptable for lots of different contexts, and we thought it might be particularly helpful if you find yourself in an institutional context where you're feeling isolated, or where you might feel like it's quite tricky to like build more shared support within the institution for the work of tackling consumption. Maybe you're finding yourselves up against some blocks, or maybe you're finding your organization's great at doing that, but is having a really hard time in your sector, peer-to-peer with other funders or other practitioners. So hopefully this is a useful tool for you. Love to hear how you get on with it. Cool. Okay, so public narrative, the model. What am I talking about? This model of sorry, bear with me one moment. I'm just making sure I've said all the things that were important to say. I'll just say, like, this is again about like using the power of stories to help us with changing the world. And it's very much about bringing and being really explicit about our values, our shared values and experiences, and communicating like from that level, and ultimately aiming to move people with us on our journey, on our issue or cause. So this is the basic structure. It's built on 3 different components: the story of self, the story of us, and the story of now. So I'm just going to run you through those three areas, those three components. So the story of self tells us why you have been called to serve, called to action on this issue. Everyone has a compelling story to tell. We've all made choices that have shaped our path, how to respond to challenges that we faced as children or as adults, whether or not to take leadership in our places of worship, our organizations, our schools, where we found hope to take risks and how we took those leaps. The story of self focuses on key choice points, moments in our lives when our values become real, when we act on our values, when we choose in the face of uncertainty. When did you first care about being heard, about concern with others, about abuses of power, about poverty, about consumption, about whatever it is that you're fighting for, and why? When did you feel you had to do something? Why did you feel you could? What were the circumstances? The power in your story of self is to reveal something of yourself and your values, not your deepest secrets, but the key shaping moments in your life. We all have stories of pain or challenge, and we wouldn't think the world needs changing. We all have stories of hope, or we wouldn't think we could change it, right? We wouldn't be in this work. So that's the story of self. It's a real call to action, call to leadership that we experienced in our life. We then bridge from the story of self to the story of us, which helps us to build community. So coming down to the bottom left-hand side of that triangle there. And the story of us communicates why our community, or the constituency that we're engaging with in particular, is called to act, and why we in particular have the capacity to act. So just as with your story of self, the key choice points in the life of the community are those moments that express the values underlying the work your organization does. The key is to focus on telling a story about specific people and specific moments of choice or action that shaped your community, your organization, your fund. Tell a story that invites others to join you in this community. And then lastly, the final component is the story of now. And this is about building urgency without ramming it home and sending people into the panic mode. So the story of now communicates the urgent challenge we're called upon to face now. It focuses on the challenge that requires action, the hope for that action, and the choice we're calling upon others to make with us in the moment now. You call on others to join you in action, and this is where we might have really specific asks or specific pathways for people to join us in. And that connects back to our original purpose, our story of self as well. So there's a through line that connects all of these together. And yeah, I'm going to share after this as well. We've got some videos of how story of self have been used in other contexts. I couldn't find anything about consumption, but maybe that's the work that this group wants to share more actively and help build the story of why we need to act to address inequitable consumption and the dominance of consumption in our lives. So yeah, just briefly then, some questions for you. We're gonna, in a moment, we're gonna pause and we're gonna do some solo work, but using some Jamboards, which I'll introduce in a moment, if not familiar for you. We're gonna have a go at just throwing down some ideas about what we would include in our story of self, our story of us, and our story of now. And usually, you know, this is very much a taster. Usually we take some time to kind of coach each other and really deep dive into the building of these three areas. But today we're just going to give you some chance to think about, what's on top for you, thinking about the recommendations that we've just chatted through, thinking about your broader understandings around consumption, the challenges of framing it. And this is about connecting your story to the work that you're doing on this. So for the story of self, there's some questions to think about, and an invitation for what the focus is here. Tell your personal story so that others understand what calls you to leadership on this cause. What challenges have you faced and what choices have you made that show why you are moved to leadership on this cause? Describe the results of your choices and shed light on what gives you hope. So what has shaped me in relation to this issue? When did I become aware, then get committed? What happened to help me do that? What challenges did I face? What choices or decisions have I made in the face of these challenges? And what was the outcome of these choices? Try and draw on really clear moments and experiences and relationships in your life, whether they be relationships with nature and the planet, or with people or actors in your life, so that folks can help to really see you and understand your values and motivations, and you can bring it to life for them. Story of us, second component. It's about describing who we are, what our shared challenges are, and some milestones in the journey that we've walked so far. It can really help to seek to learn the stories of members of my community and weave them together around the values that we share when doing this work. So if you don't already feel like you're part of a collective, if you're feeling isolated in this, it's a great opportunity to reach out and start asking questions and building that a broader sense of us. What's our shared heritage? What are the similarities in our backgrounds? What have we all done to tackle some of the challenges of the shared experience? And what is our collective vision of the world? And then finally, now the third and final component. What is the price of inaction? And what is the reality of now? Share images portraying the consequences of inaction, and other images showing what our action can achieve. And I'd say we should really go big on the latter one, because I think a lot of people already have quite a good understanding of what inaction looks like on climate breakdown. And if anything, like having too much of an idea of that is causing people to get frozen. So yeah, what can our action achieve? After creating a sense of urgency and hope, end your narrative with a specific and doable call to action. Thinking about the context that you're in and where you think you might be able to apply this tool or use it in your work. So this is the situation right now. These are the choices we should be making. This is what we hope the outcome will be. And that's it. That's the three-part structure. So I'm going to throw it open to us to have a go, if that sounds